coming live from Fall Conference here in New Orleans. I'm pleased to be joined with Stephanie Davi McNeely, who is the Director of Development and Strategic Partnerships at ACE Mentor. I'm also joined with Art Alzamora from ACE New York. Pleased to have you guys here.
Thank you so much.
I'll start with you, Stephanie. Can you introduce our listeners to the ACE Mentor program?
Absolutely, my favorite topic. So ACE is turning 30 this year, so we've been around since 1994. And I always like to say it's the model we started with in 94 is the same model we have now, which is a group mentoring model. So for folks in the engineering world who knew Charlie Thornton from Thornton Tomasetti, he realized his alma mater, Manhattan College, which is now Manhattan University, was having low enrollment in engineering. And so he, like Charlie Thornton, always wanted to find a solution. So he said, I'm going to go figure this out. And he started mentoring students in high schools in New York. And that's really how it started. And there was kind of a joke within ACE that wherever Charlie flew on a plane the next day is where another ACE program sprouted up.
Wow.
And it grew kind of slowly in the Northeast and then across the country. I think our LA affiliate also just celebrated 25 years, so kind of grew across the country that way. We now have 70 affiliates in the United States, one in Canada.
Wow.
We have about 12,000 students a year run through our program with about an 80-85% retention rate. So I'm looking at about 10,000 students a year that graduate. We're serving 70% people of color, 40% female, which those of you that are in the industry know that is well ahead of the trends, employment trends right now. And importantly, 40% of our students are first generation college. So when you think about those numbers, 10,000 students, 40%, pretty high number. And so the program still looks at its core the same as it looked when Charlie started it, where a group of mentors and a group of students work together during the course of the school year on an AEC project. And they learn about architecture, and they learn about design, they learn about all the kinds of engineering, learn about the built environment and the construction trades. And then they put it all together. And at the end of the year, they do a final presentation. They are eligible for scholarships. I think we're getting close to 40 million in scholarships in the last 30 years, or 38, 39 million, something like that. And we did about 4 million just last year in scholarships. And then once they become an ACE alum, is what we call them, although technically not in school, but once they're an ACE alum, they're eligible for a summer externship program that is a job shadow program where we pay them. For us, that's an equity issue. We really believe in paying our interns and externs because not everybody can afford to have a free internship over the summer. So we pay our students $1,800 stipends while they're in high school. And then once they graduate from high school, we have some other programs where we pair them up with mentors to guide them through the secondary.
Wow, that's great. What are some key initiatives that ACE Mentor is currently focused on? So
that alumni programming is kind of our big focus right now, knowing that we serve that many students, so many are first gen. And if you think about being a first generation student, I was one myself actually. And so, you get to college and they're like, go pay your bill at the registrar. What's a registrar? What's the bursar? I don't know what that is, right? And so to have them paired up, we call it Transformative Partners is the name of the program. But ACE student going into college paired up with a mentor in the industry, and together they're going to work on going through post-secondary. I have this story that I like to tell because it was like so symbolic of kind of evening the playing field for our students. We were on a planning call, and there was 5 CEOs of major corporations on this call, and we were talking about how to provide supports for these students. And one of the guys asked, well, how many of you failed chemistry? All 5 of them raised their hands. They all failed chemistry, and here they are as CEOs. And so we need these mentors to pair with students so that they know not to give up. We all failed chemistry. I failed statistics twice. It's okay.
Right.
You're going to survive. You're going to move on, and you're still going to go. Don't drop out of college just because of that.
Yeah.
And to help prevent some of those barriers. So
that's great. Seeing on your lapel pin, you mentioned it already, celebrating 30 years. What are some of those great success stories that you can highlight?
So many success stories. Well, the things I like to highlight specifically in numbers, just because I think it just shows the huge impact of our program, that we've served, over 100,000 students in 30 years. So that when we started keeping track, right? Because before it was just Charlie and his buddies all around the country mentoring. So of those students, about 10% a year of our mentors are former students, which I think is amazing, which is like a full circle story, right? That they were mentored, they loved the industry, they went into it, and then they chose to come back. I think 4 affiliates in our South region are being chaired by former students.
Okay.
And then the biggest number, which we actually think might be a conservative number, but our data guy doesn't like it when I give a big number that, that he can't totally validate. So 1,500 students a year from ACE Mentor program enter our industry as full-time employees.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, so we think that's a great story to tell.
That's great. If someone listening to this podcast is interested in joining ACE Mentor program, how can they get involved? What can they expect?
So lots of entry points. I think, of course, the core program is high school mentoring, and that's where we would want to start. It really gives you an idea of what the program is. It gives you an idea of who our students are, and it kind of like walks you through the process. I would say the commitment, it can be between 40 and 60 hours a year, depending. Mm-hmm. So if that's a little too much, but sometimes it can be. We have our Transformative Partner Program, which is a great entry point, and we kind of describe it as, one of our board members actually is from Minnesota, and he describes it as, we always did a great job of getting our students to the lake, and then we would say, see you on the other side of the lake. And so now, instead of doing that, it's hard for them to get to the other side without the tools. We're going to build a boat. We're going to provide them the tools. And one of those tools is a Transformative Partner Mentor. And so that's a great entry point for folks that are just kind of want to get a taste of ACE and maybe not have the time commitment.
Yep.
It's about once every other month to check in. And we do provide questions for our mentors. I have my own mentee. He's here at LSU. But if you have kids, when you're like, how was your day? And they're like, good. So that's not helpful. So we have a list of questions that we provide to our mentors that they can, work with their students, ask questions, help provide resources, and hopefully find them internships eventually. So that's a good entry point.
That's great. I think that's a great place to pivot. Art, being a father of 3, being affiliated with the program, what can you tell us?
So I think that there's a tremendous opportunity for us to find students much younger than starting to hire them as juniors or seniors in college. And when you push down into the middle school and high school ranks with ACE, who's already got the tools and the framework set up, there's a very good opportunity to jumpstart the workforce and get them into the STEM, into the engineering, architecture, construction world. I made a joke yesterday to someone, my son's in 8th grade right now, taking earth science, and we're talking, I'm a geotechnical by trade, so we're talking about getting them involved. I'm like, if he's taking earth science in 8th grade, that's where we should be transitioning and talking about getting into geology and things that interest them now. And if we wait too long, they might lose interest or it's not very topical. I think we just need to do a better job of energizing our emerging engineers who are in the industry to support them to get involved in ACE mentoring or some sort of mentor capacity if there's another vessel out there. But Stephanie said it really well in that 40 to 60 hours to me isn't much of a commitment if folks are worried about people not being billable or able to get their work done. We need to find a way to support them in that, or they're not going to succeed, or they're not going to jump on the next sort of opportunity.
That's a great point. How do we work moving forward to really incorporate the involvement of more firms, really trying to instill this program of ACE Mentor as part of that culture?
So I'll jump in quick.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
Again, we've sat at this conference all week. We've talked about workforce in several meetings, not just the workforce meeting, but several meetings. And everyone keeps saying the same thing, that they want to get involved. They want, the energy's there. They want to mentor. I think there's this great opportunity to really push the mentors into the program, support them, grow it from the inside out, teach them all of these sort of skills. But really, if you are in a rural or city type area where there's an ACE program or not an ACE program, you want it, or you have a local high school or local school you want to get in, take your project development team and just move them into that school. One, you're going to build the relationship with the project development team that maybe would not naturally have happened because now you're spending a little bit more time together with these folks. These are going to be 20, 25-year career relationships you've developed. You could always talk about your involvement with ACE. And now the students get to see what a real project team and a real synergistic type goal setting and whatnot, they get to feed off of that. And through osmosis, more or less, they're just going to learn those type of traits. And let's face it, they're going to be better off for it. So I think folks want to get involved, put your money where your mouth is and just show up, bring your team to the school. And if you need the support, ACE will be there to support you, right?
That's right. I want to add to that too,
Yeah.
About firms getting involved. We have one of our board members, Tom Gilbane from Gilbane Building Company, who always talks about the skills that it takes to be a mentor are the same skills it takes to be a leader. And so if you look at it not from billable hours or anything like that, look at it from a perspective of developing your in-house talent. these younger folks that are coming straight out of college, coming into a project management situation where maybe they are a lower level employee, or they're trying to learn what it is to be on a management team or a project team. Being an ACE leader is the perfect place to do that, because you are basically project managing a team.
Right.
Yeah. That's great. Just to pivot here, recently ACEC, along with the American Society of Civil Engineers and the American Public Works Association, created this Engineering Workforce Consortium. It's a first of its kind joint effort of these groups to seek out solutions to help address the workforce shortage facing both engineering and the public works industry. As a key member of this new consortium, what is ACE Mentor looking for this group to address in the short and long term?
Yeah, we are very excited about this consortium. We're so excited that you guys did this, that you put it together. I know it's been a labor of love from all of you. And so we're thankful for that. I think, like I said, we've been doing this for 30 years. And I think we watch folks kind of start their own things, start their own workforce development programs, and maybe they kind of sputter, or maybe they don't grow to the size of ACE. And, like Art said, we're already doing it. So there doesn't make sense to like reinvent the wheel a bunch of times. Let's work together. Let's get your folks on ACE teams. Let's get your folks involved on ACE boards. Every affiliate has 70 affiliates. They all have their own boards of directors, right? We're always looking for leadership. We're always looking for small to medium-sized firms to get involved. Like, the infrastructure exists. All we need is you guys to support it.
That's great. Given that the consortium is a new endeavor, what types of tools and resources can ACE Mentor make available to the group, to this group?
Sure. I'll start with mentor training. I know sometimes folks think, you sign up for be a mentor, you do a little background check, and then they throw you in a classroom.
Yeah.
We would never do that to you. We want to make sure you have the tools that it takes to deal with high school students, because I don't care who you are. You
Right.
get in front of high school students, it's a whole other ballgame, right? And so we provide extensive training that as your folks decide to engage, we would obviously offer to them as well.
Mm-hmm.
We also provide connections to the schools. And, post-COVID, schools are even more strapped for people and time and money. And so for us to already exist in over 2,500 schools around the country, it's a perfect place for you guys to step in and engage with those schools and not having to do it yourselves.
Yeah. Thinking of that from the state and local level, I think that's a big emphasis that the consortium is really looking to address moving forward. I think for so long, a lot of these groups, we all have our unique perspectives on how to address workforce. But now we have this opportunity to combine our message to really amplify that. How can we leverage that ACE Mentor network that is already established to really bolster that effort?
So we've added a new piece to our network that I think is going to be perfect and it aligns perfectly with the consortium. So traditionally, ACE has had this national office that I'm so lucky to get to work for. We have regional directors that help in the regions, and they're really helping like affiliate directors and affiliates with their day-to-day management of their programs. But we haven't had there's been a disconnect maybe a little bit between national partners and national sponsors and then local affiliates. And how do we bridge that gap? I'm sure similar to what you guys are dealing with as well.
Right.
And so we have these regional councils we've established. And the regional councils are made up of folks from, for example, the Northeast. All the affiliates in the Northeast will have a representative on this council. Some of our larger national partners, like you guys, we'll have a space to talk to those leaders, talk about how we can work together, talk about streamlining stuff. If you think about some of those larger, like California, for example, we have 6 affiliates just in that state.
Yeah.
How do we all work together? How do we align? How do we apply for grants? How do we do all those things? That's going to now happen at a regional level. So it'd be a good place for you guys to plug in.
That's great. That's great. It's been great learning about ACE Mentor and the great 30 years that you guys have been in existence. Are there any final thoughts that either of you have?
I would say, again, going on to sometimes when you mentor, you get more out of it than you feel the mentees might get. But focusing on empowering our younger emerging engineers, especially if they went through the ACE program, and support the externship, internship sort of approach. Let's keep these students in the workforce, help mentor them, even connect with them through college, like Stephanie was saying, but really empowering our own staff and our own partners in the industry supporting these type of events. Because, again, hearing all week everyone talk about workforce and say things like build the bench and get these folks involved, let's hold them to task. What are you doing as a company? What are you doing individually? Sometimes as a president or CEO of a company, you just have to say yes. Yep. Let's just make the yeses easier to say, right? And I know in New York, in that market, sometimes we're limited by how many folks we can get because we have a lot of interest in people wanting to be mentors. But there's just sometimes, and we have a lot. We're over 1,800 people, students participated last year in the New York Metro market, and it's going to be well over that this year. Every year is increasing, and we're faced with the same problems. We're trying to find folks to mentor and be part of these. Let's make it easy for everyone to join. And I think there's plenty of member firms in ACEC that are not engaged in ACE. So, and it's the same with ASC and APWA, like you said. Let's find how we can get all those firms involved. And I've even had some public projects where in the city market have pretty much made it a requirement of a contract to have an ACE team. Like, hey, we have to have an ACE team. Like, if you're going to be on this job, you have to be part of our ACE team, which I think is fantastic. Why don't we should fight for language like that? So I think there's a lot of opportunity. I know it's 30 years, but we're still at the start.
Oh yeah.
Like, we have a ways to go, and we're fighting it's very difficult right now to find top tier talent and keep growing the workforce. And we need to keep that going.
I would say we've actually had some affiliates around the country that were started because of that, because they were written into a project.
Yeah.
I believe the Indianapolis team was started around their airport, and Charlie was working on the airport, of course, Charlie Thornton. And next thing you know, there's an ACE team written into that job. The last thing I wanted to add, though, we do have so many talented students, and they're out there. I know we hear so much about Gen Z and Gen Alpha. They want to work. They want to do this thing. One of the things that they lack is social capital, and so they just don't have the connections. If they're think about a student, maybe as a first generation student, maybe a not an English language learner originally. Mm-hmm. They don't know what an engineer is, and a lot of times maybe they just have their only exposure to construction is the road work outside their school, and the only profession they have seen, is their teacher. And so it's really important for mentors to come from industry to provide that social capital that they might not otherwise have.
Great. Well, thank you, Art, and thank you, Stephanie, and thank you for joining us on this episode of Engineering Influence. We'll see you next time.